there's 1,000 different qualities we could claim to be the worst one a human can have, ranging from inconsiderance to dishonesty, and we always seem to be constantly wanting, whatever the person we dislike the most to be exhibiting most heavily to be the worst human quality, but there's not so much concrete evidence behind any, and yes, of course, it's clear to see that lots of these are very obviously negative and very damning and damaging, but I think so the majority of them are not to be chalked up as the worst human quality, despite however negative they may be. I feel, and I think a lot of other people will agree with me on this, that the most negative and the worst human quality to have is judgment and being judgmental, because that can stem into hatred, into inequality, into dishonesty, into every negative aspect a person can have can stem from judgment. Because when a person begins to take other people based on, unfull, incomplete, stereotypical basings, they just jump to a conclusion about a person based on one or two very finite select attributes and take that as the whole person, as their entire being, then they are so susceptible to turning that person into a concept so much easier to dehumanize. It ends up being a catalyst for other negative, attributes. They grow within the judgmental person because the judgmental person is taking other people as easier to treat, as lower, and is, dividing his mindset into a good people and a bad people, not based on morality, but based on norms and factors which are entirely amoral. They have no bearing on morality, and therefore this person is growing a disparity in the world where they force, people to be in their eyes right, in their eyes wrong, and anyone who isn't in their eyes right, whereas in moral senses they are right, they're just, not what this person takes as a standard expectation. They downgrade them, they dehumanize them, and they devalue them, and it creates not only this inequality and occasionally a hatred, but also a insecurity and insensibility where people are, afraid to be expressive or afraid to, engage in whatever certain thing they have done, which has resulted in this judgment, even if it's of no fault. If this person is being judged because of something they like, or how they dress, or what political party they assign themselves to, if they're based solely on that, solely on the affiliation, the attribute, or whatever, if that is what forms people's basis assumption of them, and that basis assumption becomes a negative one, despite the fact the human is at no fault, we treat them as in being wrong, and we force them to not want to be or like or as they are, and therefore it becomes a harsh thing to be. It becomes a struggle to be. It becomes, like they're a unwanted problem. They are forced out of their own skin almost. They have to, assign to someone else's ideology just because we have chose to judge them, just because we have, forced our point on them as correct and theirs on us as wrong. It's not how the world works, and it's not in any way how the world should work. There's no person who is able to make these huge judgments. There's no person qualified to make a judgment beyond their own sense of self. Any more job responsibility is completely fabricated. The human is the human, and every human is human. Therefore, we have this equal level of responsibility, and any attribute of any human is valid and valuable. Therefore, we can't have other people saying otherwise, because that's entirely false. We can't be doing that because there's no sense of superiority. There's no way you can rise up and do such a thing. And people who are judgmental tend to feel superior to others. And that is a whole other issue that also stems from the judgment issue. Therefore, as I presented here, I think judgment is probably, if not definitely, the worst human attribute. Compared to others, it grows into other problems and causes a lot more, and it's also damaging both to the person and to the offender themselves. It's not a good thing to be, and it people think it's alright to be judgmental as long as they're not harming anyone, but just in their thought they are harming people by building, a zeitgeist of a group, a community, or whatever. It's not a moral way to live.